Welcome to the Melonies Matters TV and radio show. Melonies Matters TV and radio, we highlight artists and business owners, and we always focus on the matters of the community. Today's guest, we have Dr. Rosalind Aker-Black, the psychology. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Melonies Matters. Today we have a great show. You guys know that on my shows, I try to always promote business owners and artists, but we always talk about the matters of the community because it helps you and I to figure out this crazy world, that we absolutely live in. So today we have Dr. Rosalind Aker-Black, and she's going to be educating us about stalkers and the psychology behind them, because it's a big epidemic, and I think it's bigger than what we know and what we realize. So welcome to the show, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you for
absolutely welcome. You're absolutely welcome. So for us, can you just define a stalker in your opinion?
Well, a stalker is someone who is terrorizing someone, and they do it in the terms of thinking that they may be protecting the person or that they can't let the person go. So they may do things as sending letters, calling, harassing calls, but to them it doesn't feel like they're harassing. It's an impulsive thing for them. So in terms of stalking, and there are different types, but some see it as actually protecting the person that they are preying upon.
Now, I'm trying to, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you 100%, but I'm trying to understand that. So can you make us understand how, if a person is going after you consistently, how could they think in their mind that they are protecting us?
So it's a crime of control, and what we know about control, when people feel out of control, they try to do everything to gain control. So for example, if there's a relationship, maybe, the relationship is ended, and maybe the wife has moved on, and the ex-husband, it may not start out as wanting to terrorize her, but he begins to do things by stopping by the house to make sure the kids are taken care of. Unannounced.
Okay.
Peeping through the windows, following their schedule, making sure that she's taking care of the kids, making sure that no one else is around his kids. So it becomes this thing of where they think that they're protecting, but it really is them trying to control the situation.
Yeah.
Where they no longer have control.
Where they are, and I think that's the big issue, like you said, is the control piece, the control piece. Typically, what does a stalker look like? And I'm saying it like that because I know that we all have a vision of what a stalker looks like, but can you define that?
Yeah, absolutely. So having stalkerish behavior does not discriminate. So anyone can be a stalker. Anyone can be a stalker. Male or female, typically males are stalkers.
Okay.
But anyone is susceptible to being a stalker. Anyone. So white, black, Latino, Asian, those things, they don't matter.
Okay.
In terms of someone being a stalker.
And it's just crazy. It's crazy, and I'm saying that, and I know people are like, it's crazy, but there has to be something that's unstable in them to make them want to pursue someone. Would you agree or disagree?
Agree. And there are some people who have mental health disorders that may cause the stalking, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then there are those who feel as if they're out of control, and maybe the breakup is what triggers them into responding in such a way. So I'll get a little biological with you. Sure. When do we come into this in utero? We in the first trimester, which most people don't talk about, we're developing the structure of the fetus. So what the baby is going to be. The second trimester is organ development. And so the organs, the lungs, all those things are developing. But what most people don't realize is that in the third trimester, that's when psychological behaviors can begin to develop.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So if the mother is doing some things while pregnant, smoking, drinking, we call these teratogens. So if you're doing harmful effects to your body, then you're setting up deficits along the way before the child even gets here.
Wow.
Yeah, It's
Wow,
deep.
it's deep.
It's very deep, and people don't understand that. If a mother is under a lot of stress, so say she's in a situation where she gets pregnant and the father's like, it's not my kid,
Okay.
you know, and we hear that happens all the
Right, all
time.
the time.
So that's going to be a huge stressor for the mother.
Right.
So if she doesn't have adequate coping skills, that's going to pass on to the child. And so the baby, people think that babies don't feel anything. Babies feel everything.
Wow.
They know their parents as soon as they are out of the womb. Like they feel everything.
Right. Sure.
So in the biological aspect of that, so in that third trimester, that's when the psychological deficits can form.
Okay.
And the reason being is because when we come into this world, and I know it's biological, I apologize, but I want to, get to a point to get you to understand. When we're born with 4 lobes in our brain. 3 are developed, the 1 is not.
Okay.
The one that's not developed is our frontal lobe, which is here, the prefrontal cortex. And what takes place in our frontal lobe is all of our executive functioning. And what I mean by that, if you think about a receptionist at a job, she knows everything. If you want to know something, you go to the receptionist.
Right, that's true.
You need anything, that's where you go. That's what our executive functioning is. It's our problem solving. It's our decision making. It's our emotion regulation. So all of those things are housed in the frontal lobe.
Wow.
Our frontal lobe doesn't fully develop until we're like 26. So the adage of wisdom comes with age is true.
It's true.
It's true. Like we're all stupid.
Right.
Like if you think back to your teenage years, you've done some crazy things.
Absolutely.
And it's just like, why would you do that? And sometimes you're like, I don't know.
Right.
Because you literally don't know. Exactly.
Okay.
You literally don't know. So couple that with the frontal lobe not developing, and then if there's some teratogens taking place in the utero, then in that third trimester, that child is going to be susceptible to behavioral deficits. Wow. Now, if they're born into a world where the environment caters to behavior deficits, then we call it the stress diathesis model. So you have the stress would be the environmental stress. The diathesis would be the genes. So once those two marry, that's how we start seeing these different behavioral deficits. So, and here's the hard part, is that all of our families, we have our own culture. Our families have our own culture. There are things that we do in our family that look crazy to everyone else. And what I mean by that, I'll give you an example. And I'm about to tell my age here, but when I was younger, I couldn't say remote control when they first came out. So I used to call it a push button. I know, all of us knows this thing when you push buttons, right? So my whole family still calls the remote control the push button. And it's so normal to us, but when my husband came to visit for the first time, he was just kind of like, and I'm from small town America, Rome, Georgia, so that gives like a context to what he's, how he responded. But he's like, what in the world is a push button? Like he was so confused. And I was like, oh, the remote control. He was like, why did your whole family still call it a push button? And he was like, I just thought that you guys were like real country and ignorant. Like we know, and because my hometown, if you blink, you'll miss it. But he was like, I just thought it was like this thing or your hometown. So where it seemed very normal to us, it was just so foreign to him. So we all have those things in our family that are just very normal. So if we see maladaptive behavior in our families, that becomes the norm. That becomes what we know. So if we see one of our parents becoming very possessive, then that's how we start to begin to think that that's how we form, that relationships are. Because parents are our first teachers. So whatever I bet that, and think about it, I still tie my shoes the way my mom taught me how to tie my shoes. I still drive the same way my dad taught me how to drive. So whatever they've done to teach us, it just carries over because they're our first teachers. And if you think about children, we mimic, they mimic everything that you do as an adult. So it becomes kind of this learned behavior. And it becomes a norm. And so when people start doing it and they've been doing it, it doesn't feel like it's that normal at all. It feels like this is just how relationships are. So a lot of people are in situations, coupled, now you've heard all the brain situations, so if they have those behavior deficits and it meets this environment where it just marries to take it to another level, then they've come into a situation of where it's just very normal to them.
Right.
And so when most people start out with these behaviors, they don't see anything wrong with it. And in a sense, if you think about it, they're probably a victim themselves from seeing it first.
Yeah.
And so what we know, we know about learned behavior is you are a victim first before you become a perpetrator.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a situation in which it's very hard when someone is being terrorized. It's hard to see the perpetrator as a victim,
Right.
especially if you're fearful of your life. But it becomes this idea of this individual is just doing what they know, which is very scary.
It's very scary.
And those are the individuals that do not have the mental health disorders.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So now when we start talking about the individuals with mental health disorders, that's very different.
Yes.
Yeah. Very, very different.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, we're here to educate, and we've learned a lot thus far, and we've only been filming a couple minutes, so we're going to take a short break and we'll be right
You're
back.
watching Meloni's Matters TV and radio show. A word from one of our sponsors, J&F Enterprises, bringing visions to reality and building the 21st century company.
We're learning about stalkers, the mindset of stalkers, and we have Dr. Rosalind here with us, and she's doing an excellent job with really giving us a foundation of the mindset and how things can kind of evolve. And even when, we think about it from, I guess, the outside, we look at it from a perspective of this person's just crazy, but sometimes it's a reason or reasons why they become quote unquote crazy. So doctor, can you tell us about the traits of a stalker?
Sure. So let's talk about the stalkers who, because we kind of discussed the stalkers that do not have the mental health issues.
Right.
But let's talk about the ones that do have the mental health issues. And sometimes those issues develop in the same way that we discussed earlier. But it's more of a personality trait. So one that you probably should look out for is what we call borderline personality disorder.
Okay.
And so I'll just give you an idea, an example of like really explaining what that looks like. Say for instance, you meet an individual, and this we hear guys say this all the time. They have a one night stand, and then they can't get rid of the person.
Right. Yeah.
And then that individual becomes so obsessed with them. If I can't have you, no one else can have you. I'm going to commit suicide. I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
So people with those type of issues with borderline personality disorder, they use manipulation.
Okay.
So when everything is good, it's amazing. It's good. But when it becomes bad, everything about you is all bad. And so it becomes very catastrophic when that person that has borderline personality disorder, when it gets to that bad, they become very catastrophic in terms of ruining the relationship. So they'll do anything to you. That's when the stalking begins. And we're all familiar with Fatal Attraction. The movie, the one Beyonce did, I can't remember that one.
Yeah.
But those type of movies, that is your true kind of borderline personality disorder person.
Okay.
So that's what borderline personality disorder looks like. And those are the main characteristics somewhat of someone who has mental health issues that stalk. So it becomes this impulsive thing for them that they can't control. And so that impulsivity is actually coming from the deficits of emotional regulation.
Wow.
Yeah. So even though they look crazy, and we're like, oh my God. Because we've all met someone, you feel like, she crazy. We've all kind of categorized someone like that. But we need to understand, and I apologize for using the word crazy, but we have to understand where that type of behavior stems from.
Yeah.
And typically, you're going to have the genetic component, and then the environmental component, and they're marrying each other, and it's producing this type of individual. Yeah. So those traits are of a stalker when it feels like it's too good to be good, and the first time you have an argument and it's something minor, and it becomes a huge blow up. That's like a first red sign, because people who are borderline personality disorder, they can't modulate their emotions.
Wow.
They're either extremely upset or extremely happy. Yeah. So a lot of people get that confused with bipolar disorder.
Okay.
Because people think bipolar disorder is where you do this mood switching, like every day, like she's crazy, she's every 1 minute mad, and it's like you're walking on eggshells.
Right.
That's not true of bipolar disorder. In terms of bipolar disorder, an individual, you do have the highs and the lows. So when the person is manic and then when the person is depressed, but there's a time span in between.
Okay.
So it's not like I'm gonna be manic and depressed in the same day.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So a lot of when people became aware of the term bipolar, they just started calling everybody bipolar. You know? But bipolar is actually there's a distance, a time frame, and when someone is in that manic stage and when someone is in a depressive stage. And a quick, just a cool pointer, a quick tidbit of bipolar is that a lot of CEOs are bipolar. Because they function well in the manic stage. When people are manic, they're very high productive people. So they get a lot done. Yeah, when they're in that manic stage, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so a lot of you are CEOs and people who are in high power positions. They are, they have traits of bipolarism. So just to tell you the difference, because a lot of people get bipolar and borderline personality disorder confused. With borderline personality disorder, it's also, these are personality traits. So this is the stableness of a person.
Gotcha.
This is just how they function in life completely. And with people with borderline personality disorder, they rely on their default behavior. So whatever gets them their way, they continue to do that regardless of any situation.
Wow.
Regardless of any situation. So if they know getting upset and like bullying someone is going to get them what they want, then they do that in every situation. Every situation. I'll tell you, when I first started out as a psychologist, I was working with this young lady who was a stripper. Very young lady. And I did in-home therapy, so every time I showed up at her house, she was naked. She was thinking, I was like, I can't come in.
Right.
Until you put clothes on. So she would go put clothes on.
Okay.
We'd get into our session. She's like, I gotta use the restroom. And then she'll come back out naked. So whenever she felt that moment of uncomfortable, because being naked, making money, was her means of survival. So that's all she knew how to do. And it kind of backfired on us. So she was borderline personality disorder. So she would get highly, intensely upset. And physically upset.
Right.
So we were in court one time for one of her issues, and she got upset with the judge. Before I knew it, she had thrown her shoe at the judge, and she was out of her clothes. It was the weirdest thing. So trying to tell a judge, no, she's not crazy.
Right.
She doesn't have to be hospitalized. This is just her default behavior. This is what she does. This is her coping mechanism when she feels anxious and anxiety. So it's the same kind of thing with stalkers. When they feel anxious about a situation because they can't control it. Because remember, stalking is a crime of control. If they can't control it, they feel anxious. And the only way to relieve that pressure or that anxiety is to stalk, is to go see what's going on so that they can control the situation.
I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot. Although I had, some prior knowledge about stalking, I'm really learning a lot because it just gives me a different perspective. Well, the same perspective, but a broader perspective.
Well, you understand. You can understand.
Yeah, I can understand it.
Yeah,
I can understand it.
I mean, I've actually because of my profession, I've actually been stalked for my profession, not personally, but for my profession. And I tell you, that was very, very, very scary. I'll tell you one incident. Was working with a family, and in this field, when I first started working as a psychologist, like I said, I was doing in-home, intensive therapy, and there was a situation with the family where neglect and things were going on, and abuse. So the mother was arrested and jailed, and this was a 2-parent household. And the dad lost the kids. Well, the kids were on disability, so that was part of their funding. So in a matter of seconds, the dad had no money, no partner, and his whole life wasn't. In the state that I lived in at the time, if your children were in the system, then you had to pay child support. So you had to pay child support for 6 kids to it's a system. So it typically was really like a horrible situation for him, and I got that. But this young man stalked everyone that was on the treatment team. Yeah. And it was kind of crazy because I had come home one night and I was working 24/7. So it was like 3 in the morning. And where I lived in kind of like a gated townhome community with older people. So I had this false sense of security, basically. So I was coming home, had my bags, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm tired, I've been at work all day, tired, and I'm going to my door, and you know how you could feel?
Yes.
I turn around, and I was on, at the time, my husband still lived here while I was there. I was on the phone with my husband at the time, because every time I came in late, he was just like, call me. Communal marriages, I'll never do that again. So I was on the phone with my husband, which probably was a good thing, but was a bad thing, because I wasn't, I wasn't really paying attention. And then I felt like, when you can feel someone's presence, I turned around and he was right here on me.
Oh my God.
I screamed. My husband just called like the security at the place, like something's going on. And I thank God for nosy neighbors. I had a nosy neighbor, an older lady, who had, she was up and she kind of saw the commotion, so they were able to get, she came outside with her bag. But, the situation was handled in a matter of seconds. But had I gotten in my house, I don't know what he would have done to me. And when they looked in his car, he had everybody's schedule. Everybody on the team, he had out their schedule, had figured out. And I always thought I was smart. I would take a different route home. I wouldn't, just wouldn't go straight home. I thought I was doing those smart things, but when someone wants to stalk you, they'll find a way to do it. So it was by the grace of God that situation didn't become a horrible situation. Because if he got in my home, I don't know what he would have done. Yeah. I panicked and screamed so loud that, but it didn't scare him, it didn't deter him. He didn't run off. Even when she came out with the bed, he just was kind of just like, so I don't know what his intentions were.
But what did he say? Or
he never said a thing, and that was
just stood there?
That was the eerie part. He never said, or I don't remember him saying anything out of my trauma. I don't remember saying anything, but I just remember him staring at me intently, and that was very scary. My husband was like, "Yeah, you're moving back home." Like that was the end of that. So that was like one situation. And then I had another situation with a client who was borderline personality disorder. So a male borderline personality disorder is a bit more frightening than for a female personality borderline. And the reason being is because, of course, most men are stronger than women.
Sure.
So when they get upset, they're really upset. And when they want to do damage, they really want to do serious damage. Like guns, like they take it to the next level. So there was a situation where I had to cancel a session with him because my husband had a medical emergency. And so I was like, can we meet the next day? And he was fine with it. Then I get a call the next morning at 7 a.m. And his whole thing was, you canceled a session with me for another man. And I'm like, what? Yeah. But he was having a trigger. During that, that was the week that it would have been his 20-year anniversary with his ex-wife, who left him for his best friend. So me not having a session with him was abandoning him again. And so, of course, I couldn't get my husband to understand that, because like this man was screaming and going, and I'm like, he's just having a moment, like I can handle it. My husband's like, no, like this is crazy. This guy's talking about getting a gun and coming here, and I was like, he has no idea where we live. Of course I wasn't sure of that, but I was like, he has no idea where we live. But because of what had happened before, my husband was just like, no, like this is just, it's too much. So stalking can happen any kind of way. It could be personal, it could be professional. So you always have to be a bit careful in terms of who you come in contact with. Now, I don't work with any male borderline personality disorder.
Yeah.
I can't, just because I have to make sure I'm protecting myself
Sure.
and I'm taking care of myself. So stalking can happen even when you least expect it. You can have one interaction with someone, and if they misperceive that interaction, and they become extremely like into you, then the impulsivity takes over and they have to see you. So if you start running into, here's another red flag, you start running into someone everywhere that you go, that's not a coincidence. Like, you should really take, because most people would just brush that off, that's not a coincidence. You should really just become cautious.
Right.
Become a bit more cautious.
Wow, great point.
Yeah.
Great points, ladies and gentlemen. On that note, we'll be right back.
You're watching Melanie's Matters TV and radio show. A word from one of our sponsors, Lawn Jack Events. Come out and join Lawn Jack for their costume karaoke. Visit Lawn Jack Events.
Ladies and gentlemen, hi, we are back. Man, are we learning so much information. Information that we all need to just digest. I know when I finish doing my recording, I'm going to look at this video again because I learned so much in this little bit of time, thanks to Dr. Rosalind. So we talked about men, you know, the different traits and everything in the men. So can you tell us about the female perspective? I mean, when you are, I guess, head on with single white female, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. That movie, if you haven't seen Single White Female, that's like a movie you definitely have to watch, because it really just shows how someone can become enthralled with your life and want to live your life. And again, this does not discriminate. The person could be as intelligent or less intelligent, you know, middle class, like, you know, it doesn't discriminate. And so it's easier for females to stalk because we know how to become friends first. So we know how to be your friend. So we befriend you. If we're stalking another female, we befriend you. And it seems like we have a lot in common. But what's really taking place is that the individual is assessing your life and then putting themselves in your life. And sometimes people don't realize it until it's too late.
Yeah.
So I've seen this happen a lot. I work with a lot of college students, as I am a college professor as well. So I see this happen a lot on college campuses. People who don't have their own identity, then they want to be like who that person is. And so their whole life turns into being like this person, mimicking this person. They start dressing like them. Their hair, they start wearing the same hairstyle. They start wearing the same makeup. They want to know where this individual, where'd you get this, where'd you get that? And then those are red flags. Because most people want to be individuals. Most people don't like, you know, they want their own style. So when someone is constantly like, where did it come from, where did this come from, where'd you get that, you know, red flag. Because how were they functioning before they met you? You know what I mean? What were they doing before they met you? So you have to be, and I hate to say this, but you do have to be cautious of people. You have to absolutely be cautious of people. And borderline personality disorder women can be ruthless as well. They scheme and manipulate, because part of that whole borderline personality, part of those personality traits is complete manipulation. So before you know it, they may turn everyone else against you, and it's just the two of you. When you may have had loads of friends and you're trying to figure out, like, how did this happen? Wow. How did this get to a place where I'm just hanging out with you? You know? And they start seeing, causing issues with your other friends and trying to manipulate your relationship. And again, this is one thing about women in terms of aggression. We are relationally aggressive. And what I mean by that is that, well, I'll give an example. Remember when we were in kindergarten, you'd be on the monkey bars and be like, come play with Susie, she's got the cooties, right? And it sounds so simplistic, but everybody stops playing with Susie because like, oh yuck, you have the cooties. So typically what that is, that's how we're aggressive. We break down relationships as women because we're not much fighters, right? And if you think about guys fighting, they could be friends in the next minute, right? They're playing a game of basketball. But when it comes to women, we break down relationships. that's how we're aggressive. That's how we show our aggressive. So that's where that whole term of, you're two-faced, you know, you're doing this, you're doing that. You playing both sides, that's where all that comes from.
Wow.
Because that's how we show our aggressive traits. It's easier. Because most women are not fighting, right?
Right.
Most women are not, prayerfully.
Right.
Most women are not out there fighting and doing all this. I mean, if you look at the reality shows, you could just see how they break down relationships amongst the women.
I haven't watched them.
Yeah,
However,
that's probably
that's
good.
a different perspective to look, you know, from that perspective.
Yeah, they go straight for the relationship, and I'll be aggressive that way. So if you have someone that comes into your life, say for instance you have 5 best friends,
Right.
then you meet this new girl, and like most people are like, oh, I want you to meet my new friend.
Right.
Then I met at church, and then I met at school, and then I met in the library, wherever you met her. And most people want their friends to merge, right? You know, you want to be with all your girlfriends all at the same time, because it just makes life easier.
Right.
Nobody wants to have these separate pockets of friends,
Right.
because who has that much time in the day, right?
Right.
So you get her in, and your friends probably right away can tell something's not right with the person.
Right.
You know, something's a little off.
Right.
You know, they may not be able to pinpoint it,
Right.
but they can tell when someone is trying to, because maybe she's done something on the slide, maybe they've caught some body language on the slide that she's done that has made them alert, but she's been such a good friend to you
Right.
that you don't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like the best friend ever, would do anything for you, call in the middle of the night, she'll do something for you. She becomes that kind of person, so they become like this all-forsaken God to you.
Yeah,
So
invaluable.
so when they do something wrong, it's hard to, because you're like, oh my God, they've done so much for me.
Yeah.
So it's hard to like have this attitude of like, I need to cut you out of my life, right? And so at that point, that's when they have you.
Yeah.
Because they've done so much for you
That's right.
that you're stuck, because nobody wants to be the mean person. Nobody wants to be the mean girl. Nobody wants to be the one that's hurting someone else.
Right.
Typically, if you're normal and not abnormal,
Gotcha.
nobody wants to be the mean person. And so once they do something, or once you're confronted with information about this person, it becomes very hard for you to believe. And so you still want to see the good in the person.
Right.
And that's when they begin the manipulation.
This is deep.
Yeah.
This is deep. All right, Doc. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to share my own story. My story to me is very bizarre, but I'll let it unfold. It started via Facebook. Yeah, that's where it started, and via email. That's where it started. So the first email, I'm a friend of somebody. I don't know. This is what I know about you. And just started listing some things, you know, about me. Some of it was off, but some of it was on. Now, let me go back and say this is anonymous. Okay, anonymous. So this kind of went on and has gone on, that type of interaction, email anonymously, Facebook anonymously, any site that I'm on anonymously. This is in it. You kind of figure the language. It's a female. Okay, so this had gone on for, and at first I did what I know the doctor's going to say you shouldn't have done. I responded.
Okay.
I responded.
That's human nature.
It's human nature. But what I noticed was that, and it took me a while to, you know, I said, every time I respond, that makes that person more aggressive and more, well, if you said this, I'm gonna do this. You know, it was just like insane. And this went on for about 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yes, 3 years anonymously. And I want you guys to understand that, because, and I'm going to tell you something that really, well, a couple things that really, really put me in a space like, oh my God. The first thing is this. My husband and I, we were going through some issues, and so we said, we're going to take a trip. Let's just get away. So that's what we did. This girl called my home. Yes, I mean, it's public information, you know what the phone number is. Called my home, and at that time I had my middle daughter and my younger daughter there, you know, and she, where's your mother? You know, so my daughter didn't tell me about it, of course. She was like, Mom, you know, I didn't want to tell you because it would have ruined, your trip.
Mm-hmm.
Just the fact that I'm away and you're calling
my house.
Yeah. So that was one thing. And the second thing was on Craigslist. Put up a sexual ad and had people come to my home and call me. Yeah. But this last thing was, I was out doing my errands, going to Sam's Club, going to Walmart, which I absolutely love. You want to find me? That's where I'm at.
I know, I love it.
And I'm going about my day. And my phone is, vibrating, I have a message or whatever. So I'm like, I'll check it later. I'm going to one of my clients' house by this time. I'll check it later. So when I checked it, it was photos of me going to and from.
Oh my goodness.
So of course, and later on one of my shows, we're going to talk to a detective who, has been instrumental in helping me, with this. But I say all that to say that, stalking, if you let it, can put you in this like, everybody's a villain.
Frenzy. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's a right.
Right.
Everybody does.
And I think for me, because that person is quote unquote unknown, I was even more vigilant of, what's going on. Did somebody just sneeze or, I was just more vigilant. But it definitely taught me a lesson. And this is what I learned from that situation. I learned that if you allow people to take over your mind, they have you. She didn't, and at one point, I will admit, she was there. I was on my way to the cuckoo house, because
that's scary. It's terrifying.
I said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. So I had to follow protocol, do what I had to do on my end to make sure that I was safe, my family was safe, and of course followed up with law enforcement. But being stalked is no joke. It really is.
And unfortunately, law enforcement really can't get involved until something dire happens. So that's the scary part. It's like, so I gotta get burnt or I gotta get killed before before you find the stalker. And I think that's where we have to catch up, where the law has to catch up with stalking, because in the world of social media, like it, and I have to think about it. Even myself, I'm as a public figure, people can take pictures, people can do whatever, and you'll never know. You never know. I mean, people can live as you, the whole catfish thing. It's just the reality. So tell me about your situation. Where you guys at, or can you talk about it or no? Okay. Well, I hope you find whoever it is. Because the idea now, the taking pictures of me running my errands, that would have freaked me out.
And I was.
That would have got me.
And I really was, and for me, ladies and gentlemen, I know we're kind of like getting off a tad bit, but still, kind of staying on subject. The thing was, that particular day, it was a Sunday. Now, usually I take my daughter with me, but that day I said, you know what, stay, because I knew I had to go see a client. I said, well, just stay home, Dad, I'll be back or whatever. And so in my mind, I'm like, well, what if, you go through the what ifs. What if, I had the baby with me and something happened, so for a minute, and I will say I was shaken, but that's when I said, no, you are not taking control, because that is what you want to do. How do I know? Because you sent me an email saying, oh, you have on this, you have on that, you have this kind of purse, and of course took a picture of my car, So, but I'll say this, for anybody, and let me go back a little bit. When the incident happened on Facebook, that's where one of the, where it originally started. And at that particular time, she was trying to defame me. Okay. And social media, it is what it is. It is what it is. But what I found was that so many people were so supportive. They were so supportive. And then what I found secondly is that so many women reached out to me behind that incident, because they were like, oh my God, I thought it was just me. I had the same thing happen to me. And I'm like, gee, Christmas. And look at this. Even the one of the guys that They called me from, Craigslist.
Mhm.
He called me for the sexual thing that she put up. Guess what? He was stalked too. And
Wow.
yes. And he told me his whole story.
Wow.
So out of what she was trying to do to me, the support just came, and it came in abundance.
And that's a testimony of your character. When people truly know you,
Yes.
they'll know that doesn't even, like I've never had a fight in my life. So if somebody was going to say Ross killed somebody,
Right.
well, nobody's going to believe that. Like they would have to say she was put up against the wall. She had no choice.
Right.
Because she's just not going to go kill someone. She wouldn't even hurt her flee, right? Because that's my character.
That's
People
right.
know that about you. So
that's right.
the idea of stalking, it can ruin your life. I mean, it can be very terrorizing. I'll tell you, after my 2 incidents, I was very nervous, very terrorized, because you don't know, like, if the person is coming back, like, and again, in that one situation with me, it was like, what if he had gotten into my house?
Yeah. The what ifs.
The what ifs.
Yeah.
And that's the very, very, very scary part about the whole situation. But when I thought back on it, in terms of when he got, I remember telling my husband like a couple of times, like, God, I just feel like this car is following me.
Wow.
So he was like, oh, just turn here, go there, just drive somewhere else,
Right.
just to make sure, but the stalking has affected me so much that, where we've settled on living now, like it's very close to a police station.
Really?
Like I need to know that somebody can get to me in like less than 1 minute flat. Yeah. I mean, because that whole idea of if someone can get into a gated community and tell whatever lie to get in,
Right.
and peep the scene for weeks, that's a very determined person.
Yeah.
So I think what people have to understand about people who stalk, they're very determined. It's the impulse. It is the impulse that gets them to, it's the impulse and the compulsion, plus the stalking calms them down.
That's crazy.
Yeah, where it may, riddle you and rile you all up, it calms them down because they feel they're in control. So it's kind of like, and we all have this with our coping mechanisms. We all do things to calm us down. We all do those things. So that's not an abnormal thing of what they're doing. The reason it becomes abnormal is because the stalking is attached to it. So it's very scary to be stalked. And it's very scary for them to be the stalker because they don't know how far they're going to go.
Now, Doc.
Yeah. I know. That's
She's gonna have to explain this one, guys. I don't know, because I think they don't care.
Yeah, and a part of that is because they don't have a plan. Their goal is just to get rid of the anxiety. So whatever's going to take place, it's going to take place. So it looks like they don't care, but in actuality, it's like it's not a planned thing, and they're just in a space of reacting to trying to cope with their emotions and the anxiety.
Wow.
I know, again, it's very hard to see this person as a victim.
Right.
As a victim first, but they are victimized by their own impulsivity and compulsions, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
While they're terrorizing your life, they are just as terrorized.
And it just
by their
makes
own
everything
actions.
so complex,
Mhm.
and again, when you look at situations like this, and stalking and situations like this, it's not black and white.
Oh no,
It's not what because you look at the person and you're like, you have lost your everlasting mind.
Yeah.
But it's so many factors, as Dr. Ross, plainly explained, that comes along with that. People don't just wake up and say, hey,
I'm gonna go stalk you
I'm
today.
gonna go stalk you
Yeah,
today.
it lies dormant, and I know people are probably tired of talking about the whole Chris Brown and Rihanna thing, but it's a perfect example of something being the norm. So, Rihanna's father was abusive to her mother, and Chris's stepfather was abusive to his mom. So they both learned the behavior of abuse. They both saw it as a normal thing in their home, and it may have lied dormant until they had an overwhelming issue that,
It's a perfect storm.
Yep. So I always tell people when you meet someone, because nowadays when we're out dating, and like it's so interesting that you brought up that Craigslist, because people date on Craigslist. people solicit and look for sex off of Craigslist. And if you think about that, that is probably the most harmful way, because there's no checks and balances. You know, there's no checks and balances. At least with things with like eHarmony, like you have to pay with a credit card, so somebody they get to you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, that's a pretty kind of different thing. Whereas you can just put it on Craigslist and it's open to where I don't know how you handle that. I would be mortified if somebody put it out of Craigslist.
I absolutely was, but you know, again, I just had to like do a check. I'm like, this is what she wants.
Yeah.
This is what she wants, and you're going to give it to her.
And you have to be a strong-willed person to move past that. I'll be honest with you. I had to go to therapy to get past my trauma, because it was too much in my face, and I didn't know if I was meeting my maker that night. Or, you know what I mean? I didn't know, and it's like I want to help the community, but not like this.
Right.
Like enough of my life to be at stake. So I had to do what I call what we call a psychological or emotional dissonance. Like, do I really want to help people in this way?
Gotcha.
That I spent all this time going to school for?
And money.
Yeah, exactly. Do I want to help people in this way, or do I want my life? And so I really had to rethink about how I'm going to live my life as this psychologist. And I know that no longer works for me. Yeah, that no longer. I don't want to be a person making a recommendation of taking someone's livelihood away, because that's essentially what I did. You know, and so I'm very, even when I'm, you know, asked to be an expert witness on a court case, like I'm very selective about what I take, because I don't want an issue to come back to affect me in such a way as stalking, you know, or murder. You know, so even though we have the best intentions of wanting to help, it can absolutely put us in harm's way. So, and trying to help a stalker, trying to be a friend of a stalker, they'll get you too. They'll pluck you off and move you out the way too.
I hope you all heard that, you know, and it's so complex. You know, Dr. Ross did an excellent job with, you know, explaining, you know, from the moment almost when you're conceived, these things come into play. And then you have your environment, you know, and then you have all these other things. So, guys, this is a deep subject. And I do want to point out that Dr. Ross did not know my story, and I did not know her stories. And it just goes to show you that, you know, if someone is so determined, they can really just unbalance you. They can unbalance you. So, you know, Dr. Ross, when we come back, just give us a few tips on, you know, what to really look out for. I know we talked a little bit about it, you know, earlier, but some things that we can really, you know, zone in on like immediately. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be back in a few minutes.
Meloni's Matters TV and radio show. A word from one of our sponsors, Entrepreneurs of Baltimore. Join Entrepreneurs if you would like to be a part of the new reality show.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and I don't know about you guys, but I have learned so much, and I'm kind of looking at stalkers, you know, kind of differently, the same, because they're trying to terrorize, but kind of differently. And I guess that's why we have, you know, Dr. Ross, because she's giving us the psychological aspect of it, which will help people who have been stalked to kind of understand a little bit more. But Dr. Ross is going to give us some things to definitely look out for. She gave us a little bit a few minutes ago, but she's going to definitely give us some things to really watch out for.
So here's a couple of things that you can do in terms of social media. Make sure all your stuff is locked.
Okay.
Never put your schedule on social media, even when you're tagging where you are. Like a lot of people will tag here and so and so.
That's a good point.
Like you get too much of your business away, so people can pinpoint you. Take the GPS off of Facebook. Yeah, take the GPS off. So because even when you post, it tells where you are. Yeah, it'll tell, you know, where you're posting from. So I mean, it's unfortunate that you have to live your life that way, but at the end of the day, it's if you want to be safe, you know, because there are people who are looking to figure out where you are. So just in terms of social media ways to protect yourself, absolutely don't give where you are. Or if you want to say where you are, post after the fact.
Right.
You know, after the fact. Like, don't let somebody control your life to that extent. But post after the fact, once you've gotten home and you're no longer at that place.
Right.
Like, I know when I first started out, I would have my calendar on my public figure page on Facebook. So that if somebody wanted to book me for anything, they could just see when I was available. And I was like, my husband was like, are you crazy? And I didn't get it. At first, he was like, you're telling everybody pinpoint where you are. You know, my husband works in IT, so he's like, people can track where you are at any given point in time. So I had to realize, and even on my website, which is, you know, I told you, it's kind of under construction because I needed to take down some things that was telling too much about myself.
Gotcha.
Even in our bios, even in our pictures that we post, be very careful if you're always freaking. So say, for instance, you're in a bowling league. You know, and you're posting your bowling pictures every week from the game. That people learn your schedule.
Wow.
So be very careful in terms of how you post things in social media, on Twitter, and whatever else they have. Even so much as to where people can see what you like, because then they start following you that way. Like I took the option off for people to follow me on Facebook. Because I realized that, well, first of all, I didn't realize you could do that until I was like, what is this following thing? And then I was like, who are these people following me? I have no idea who they are. You know, and so it's just kind of like, I don't know you like that. But when a person can follow you, they can also they can message you. And I think they can see your pictures, even if you have the privacy. So I was like, I don't want anybody to follow me. Nothing. You know, so you have to find ways to protect you, because why are you following someone that you don't know? Like, and I started looking at these people, so there's no interaction, no mutual friends. Why are you following me? So those are some signs. If you look at your Facebook stuff and people are like following you, be very aware of that, because what is their motive for following you? I'm just not going to go out and follow somebody random I don't know. Barring it not being like a pop star or something. But just a regular person, I'm not going to follow you. Why? I don't care what, and not to be mean, but I don't care what's going on in your daily life. And if we can't be friends, then there's no need for me to, why am I following you and not request to be a friend? So those are, even though that sounds simplistic, it's something to think about, because they can see your movements. They can see your movements on Facebook. When it seems a little bit too good to be true. When you meet someone, especially if you're in the dating world, when dating someone, if it seems like, oh my God, this person is just like heaven sent, be cautious. I always tell people to, and not that I'm telling you who to have sex with or whatever, but when to have sex, hey, that's your own business. But you might want to go through some seasons with people. You need to see how they handle adversity before you become intimate with them. And the reason why I say that, because we know what intimacy brings on. You know, it brings on extra emotions. It brings on the possibility of pregnancy, the possibility of STDs. So if we're not careful in that aspect, then you're now forever linked to someone who could be potentially dangerous in your life. Never bring somebody home to your house. People do this, like, ladies. They do these one night stands. Like, why? Don't do that. Don't do that. If you can't go to his place, or if you guys can't meet in a mutual place, then don't do it. Some other tips that you guys could really think about: if you're meeting somebody for the first time for dating, you drive your own car.
Very good point.
Drive your car. Don't let them know where you live. And we didn't talk about this, but human trafficking is a huge piece in terms of that whole seduction process. So the men that they use and the women that they use to seduce the victim, they'll seduce you for a while till they get you. So while it may seem like it's like you're developing a relationship, it could just be a trap. into something much worse. So definitely, you have to be cautious and smart.
Yeah.
Don't ever like give them your address up front. Don't tell them where you live. Don't tell them all your business.
Yeah.
And I know we like to play that get to know you. Oh, where do you work? What do you do? And if you have a great job, you're excited. Oh, I work for Google.
Right.
You know, down K Street.
Right.
Now you've told them where you work, so they know where you are every day. You know, so you have to be completely cautious and careful. And I don't say this to scare you. I say this to protect you.
Right.
Because it's so easy. A little bit of information, even when you give out your number, there's a site where you can pay $2 to figure out who the person is, where they live, everything, just by your telephone number. So definitely, like, you just have to be very cautious and careful. I don't know if you heard about this. I think it happened down in Georgia, but the young lady had met this guy, maybe off like Craigslist. No, actually it was a paid site. I think it was like eHarmony or something like that. He came from out of town. They stayed at a hotel together. Well, don't do that. You don't stay at the hotel with him. If you live in the place, you let him stay at the hotel. He doesn't need to know where you live, especially if this is someone you don't know. And so they went out on a date to the Waffle House, of all places. And then he burns her. I think he shot her, he burned her, and he robbed her. Yeah. So, and the only thing that helped her is that the city gave his real name on the dating site where they met. So that's like the only thing that helped her case. And she survived, thank God. But you know, and I don't mean to say this in a condescending way, but don't be so desperate to have a man in your life that you lose all sensibility. Regardless of what he looks like, regardless of what he's doing for you, you still have to be cautious, because at the end of the day, you got to take care of you.
That's right.
You have to make sure you're safe. In terms of women, with the stalking from women, be careful about these women that come into your life and they seem like your long lost friend from like pre-K. Check into it, and it takes nothing to Google a person.
Yes.
It takes nothing, and there is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with Googling information on someone to figure out who they are.
That's right.
You need to know who you are. The one thing that we can't get back is time. So you have to be very aware of who you give your precious time to.
That's true.
You know, and so I say Google everyone. When I meet someone and they want to become, because there's one thing about networking, everybody's like, oh, let's network, let's do this. But when a person just takes it a step further, that it makes you feel uncomfortable, then listen to your instinct.
That's right.
Listen to your gut telling you, check this out.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember, it's kind of similar to you. I had a young lady who kept inboxing me on Facebook, and this is before they had the other inbox. So you know, on Facebook, hey, you got the inbox and the other inbox. This is before they had that. So I was getting her messages directly. She kept wanting to meet for lunch, and it just didn't feel comfortable to me. And we had some things in traits. She's a psychologist, and some other things that we had in common. And she just kept wanting to meet for lunch. And I was like, well, why? We don't know each other. Like, why have you just picked me? We didn't have any mutual friends. Nothing. Why did you just pick me out of a crowd of people to want to get to know? You know what I mean? To want to have lunch. And so for like 6 months, I kept playing it off. Like, oh, I'm busy, can't do this. Oh, I'm busy, can't do that. Oh, I have this going on, I can't do that. Not really giving specifics. And then finally, like one day, I was just like, this person not gonna let up. So I'm gonna go meet this person for lunch. Stupid me, I went to their office. Like, oh, I'll come to your office. Which everything turned out fine, but I saw the potential for the single white female traits. And so I kind of like, you know, distanced myself from that for great reasons. For that relationship, because what then happened is that she then went on my Facebook, found all my friends, and started befriending all my friends. So when they saw that we were friends, that kind of like I gave a co-sign. And they was like, oh, well, she's your friend, she must be cool, that kind of thing. And then she started doing some of the same things that she was doing to me, to other people. So,
wow.
not that she's ever been like detrimentally like stalkerish or anything,
Right.
but that type of behavior
Yeah.
is still abnormal.
Yeah.
And as a grown woman, you should be able to make your own friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think so.
you should be able to. And I didn't realize what she was doing until she sent me a message. She was like, "Oh, can I go to this event in Chicago with you?" And I'm like, "What the heck is she talking about?"
Wow.
What happened, she had befriended my sister who lives in Georgia, who has never met her. And it was an event my sister was going to, but my sister and I, we look a lot alike.
Right. Oh.
And so she must have got profiles confused. And so even now, I won't even say, if somebody invites me to something on Facebook, even now, like, I'm not even saying I'm going to that, because
you never know.
you never know. Like, somebody could just be, and if you don't know who your stalker is, they could just be waiting on you and, you know, waiting on you at the venue, wherever you're going. So you just have to be very careful in terms of your footprints that you leave across social media.
Wow.
Have to be very, very, very careful. So when someone feels that they are just, when it feels it's just too good to be true, something's not quite right, I always say follow your instincts. Like a guy who is trying to just know so much about you, want to, you know, tell me about your parents, you know, trying to fishing for information rather than genuinely wanting to know. Because here's the truth of the matter, most guys really don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care. They don't care. They're not really trying to hear about your family. Like if you talk about it at school,
Right.
like they might want the basics. Oh, I got so many siblings.
Right.
Like they might want those basics,
Right.
but they're not going to be in depth. So what did your mom do? What did your dad do? You know what?
That's very true.
Yeah, most guys are not going to do that. And so if you find someone that is doing something like that,
Right.
they're fishing for more information.
Wow.
You know, so now they're trying to gain some kind of control over your nuclear family life. So you definitely just have to be very vigilant. Be yourself. I always say this, and like you were saying in your situation, never let someone else's behavior change from who you are, change you from who you are.
Absolutely.
But you have to be cautious in protecting yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely have to be cautious.
Whew. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm kind of taken back. You know, again, I have learned a lot, and that is my duty, that is my goal, to bring to form, you know, things that everyone can learn from. You know, this stalking situation, if you really look at it, like I said, from my own story, I did not know that so many people were being stalked.
At least 3 million a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
3 million a year.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And that's just in the U.S.
Right.
Yeah, that's just U.S. demographics. So yeah, it's not. I don't want to say it's a normal thing.
Yeah.
But it happens quite often.
Yes.
And it starts young, people.
Yeah.
It starts young. I mean, a lot of these middle school relationships, you got to be careful who your kids are talking to. Have to be very careful who they're, you know, because now they have more than what we had. They have FaceTime.
They have,
You know, they have so many gadgets, and most parents are not up on like the latest stuff, Snapchat, all that good stuff. So I know, like I don't have any kids, but I have nieces, and I'm always monitoring their stuff on Facebook and on Instagram. And I'm like, who is this?
Right.
You know, and I will put it on there, post like, why you say that to my niece? So that person will know, that there is an adult that is paying attention, watching. It drives my nieces crazy, but like I tell them, I don't care about you being upset. Because at the end of the day, I love you.
That's right.
What I do is protection. That's right. What somebody else does, we don't know what that is. So, but they call me the stalker. They call me the Facebook stalker. It's so ironic. They call me the Facebook stalker, but they know I mean well. They know I mean well. But you know, people do. They stalk your Facebook page.
Yeah.
They stalk. I mean, literally, and people judge your life based on Facebook.
Yeah.
Based on what they see on Facebook, and I tell people all the time when I'm out and about, because you know I host events.
Yeah.
I may take pictures with people. I don't know. You know what I mean?
That's right.
But then people are like, and they may post a picture with 3 weeks later. And I'm like, I went out there, man. Really in my own body. If you want to know the truth, really a homebody. I like being at home watching Lifetime in my snuggie, drinking cocoa. You know, but you can't determine when someone's gonna post something. And it was so funny. Like this weekend, this guy took a picture with Samuel L. Jackson. And he posted on Twitter, chilling with Samuel L. Jackson.
Right.
And Samuel L. Jackson retweeted, we weren't chilling, this is just a picture. I was like, oh God, I mean, it was like, but you know, people would do that because they want to make it seem like they're cool with you. Yeah. So you just got to be careful. You got to watch your social media footsteps.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for, sticking in there. And I hope you guys just learned a lot. That again, that's the purpose, to learn, to take away something, to enrich our lives and, to add value to our lives. And I really do hope that you enjoyed the show. Thanks again to Dr. Roz Aker-Black for, stopping by and sharing this great information with us. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, you take care, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Melanie's Works TV and radio show, we highlight artists and business owners, and we talk about the matters of the community. If you're interested in learning more about our shows, please visit www.melaniesworks.com.